The future scenarios around temperature increases in St. Lucia extend beyond day-to-day living. Currently, and by 2030, global climate change may result in the consistent occurrence of high-intensity tropical storms and drought-related forest fires. A major concern in these disaster scenarios is how vulnerable the island's population is to the impacts of hurricane category storms. The National Report of Living Conditions for St. Lucia 2016 indicated 8.7% of the country's population was significantly affected by climatic events between 2010 and 2015. In the economically disadvantaged areas, such as Ancillary, Canries, and Castries Rural, the percentage was higher, 22 and 14% respectively. The report also indicates that up to 65% of the island's population lives in homes not covered by homeowner insurance. At the national level, however, St. Lucia is covered by the Caribbean Catastrophe Risk Insurance Facility. This facility has contributed to disaster recovery in the past, as in the case of Hurricane Thomas. In 2010, Category 1 Hurricane Thomas swept over the island, resulting in $1.3 billion worth of damages in the country. Thomas brought on an onslaught of landslides, flooding, and infrastructural damage across the island. 14 people also perished during the storm. With this in mind, in the last 2 years, 3 Category 5 hurricanes have barreled through the Caribbean. The forecasts predict that more frequent, intense storms are anticipated to affect the islands, increasing St. Lucia's vulnerability into the future. This raises major concerns for the island, as the loss, if the country was to lie in the path of a superstorm, would be far greater than it has previously seen. As a Category 1 hurricane, Thomas's destruction was primarily from flooding and landslides. A Category 5 storm will more than double the intensity of these landslides and floods, bringing mountainsides and houses into valleys. As mud, water, and debris tumbles toward the sea, it could collide with a storm surge of a magnitude never experienced by most St. Lucians in recent history. While these storm surges can be seen from events from around the world, and recently due to the effects of Hurricane Dorian in the Bahamas, a Category 5 storm will be worse for St. Lucia because of the island's landslide-prone mountainous terrain. Loss from a Category 5 storm will likely be felt by everyone inhabiting the island. However, marginalized and impoverished populations will be disproportionately affected since many of their homes are located in high-risk areas such as riverbanks, unstable hillsides, and along the seashore. Through the ongoing World Bank-funded Disaster Vulnerability Reduction Project, DVRP, the St. Lucia Development Bank is providing financing for climate change adaptation at the household level. The DVRP is a major investment in St. Lucia to prepare for and respond to disasters, but the most vulnerable people may still need direct government assistance to rebuild after disasters.
There is a notion in St. Lucia that people live good in St. Lucia. And when you say good, in our local parlance, people living well. Things are nice in St. Lucia. That, as I go across the island in different outer districts, that I have come to conclude is a misnomer. I think many St. Lucians are experiencing a lot of poverty, and poverty in itself contributes to significant mental health issues and other social challenges that we have.
Combined watershed and flood analysis on the effect of a Category 5 hurricane on key settlements along the coast shows storm surges rising up to 6 meters. This will completely cover houses on the seashore in fishing towns and render key ports and harbors temporarily useless. Simulation of the effects of these surges shows the sea covering practically all of Ancillary. The same will happen in Viewfort, causing major disruption of the island's only international airport. Downtown Castries and the regional VG airport will also be flooded. The National Emergency Management Organization, NEMO, is working with all sectors in the country to fortify resilience and recovery measures in the event of worst-case scenarios. In any circumstances, this task is very challenging. Examination of the houses in these locations suggests that up to half of them will be either uninhabitable or destroyed after such a storm. With improper adaptation and evacuation, people will die. If NEMO is delayed in its program implementation across sectors for disaster preparedness and recovery, many survivors will migrate. These will be St. Lucia's disaster refugees.
Well, yes, we have done quite a bit of work in early warnings. In fact, St. Lucia is in the process of finalizing the multi-hazard early warning system policy that will guide how we prepare and how we inform the public before an event. Though this multi-hazard early warning system policy is an inclusive document which is scientifically based, and we're also looking at converting our processes into an impact-based forecasting. At present, what we tell people is what the weather will be like. What we want to tell people next is what the weather will do to them. So this generation and this type of impact-based forecasting will help a lot in ensuring that persons understand what the weather system will do to them. So if previously we would tell persons an upper level trough is approaching, we want to not only just tell them an upper level trough is approaching, but we also want to say what type of damage, what type of impact that system will have on livelihoods and lives, and also the local communities. So if a storm is approaching, how much rainfall will happen, we need to tell persons that. Now, to do this, we have to set up some systems, and we're now in the process of setting up a national information center. Now, that national information center will be run by the Met Office with support from the rest of the different agencies to ensure that we have the ready information in St. Lucia. At present, we'll get a lot of support also from the Caribbean Institute of Meteorology and Hydrology to give us a lot of the background data to inform that information center. So we will be able to do a lot of the modeling and lot of the coastal inundation modeling that is required to tell us exactly what has happened, particularly issues to the storm surge. We've help from the OECS. We are also going to be doing some bathymetric studies and some LiDAR data, which is the high resolution topographical maps that will help us, so we'll be able to definitively see what is going to happen with the weather system and be able to warn people earlier. So the multi-hazard early warning systems in combination with this radar system that we are setting in will give us some added strength and be able to give people early warnings. At the national level, the government, through the Ministry of Finance, is now setting up a national disaster management fund. And that disaster management fund will give us the funding necessary to do a lot of the work necessary to prepare the country and to respond better. So a lot of pieces are slowly happening, but eventually all those pieces will come together in a cohesive manner to ensure that as a country, we are as disaster prepared as possible. And it starts with the disaster office, and our job is to go out there to ensure that all the pieces have been done. And at the end of the day, we all together singing the same song, that disaster management affects everybody, and the ethos is to prepare everybody together.
A large part of NEMO's work is set within the 2015 to 2030 United Nations Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction. Under the guidance of this framework, NEMO projects the country will be much better prepared to deal with disasters over the next 4 years and achieving an even higher degree of resilience by 2030. Currently, of the 192 emergency shelters listed by NEMO, some are in need of upgrades. Some are located in flood-prone areas which residents feel are more unsafe than their homes. By comparison, there are more suitable buildings constructed recently, like the Babono Secondary School, which will not only avoid the dangers of flooding, but has a concrete roof, the most ideal option to weather intense winds and rainfall. As the country builds resilience against possible major disasters like a Category 5 hurricane, however, there are other major issues in need of further attention. In the health sector, the main hospital in the south of the island is operating at the base of a dilapidating sports stadium and, like the country's primary health facility, the Victoria Hospital, it ordinarily lacks the capacity to accommodate the demand for health services in less demanding situations. The newest hospital is only partially opened after 10 years since completion of construction. According to NEMO, despite these challenges, St. Lucia's health sector has improved its capacity to better deal with a sudden spike in injured persons after disasters.
The planning is for certain types of injuries that are common within those types of hazards. If you have an earthquake, there are certain types of injuries that are synonymous with earthquakes. If you have flooding, there are certain injuries that you will get because of flooding. And likewise, a hurricane with high winds, roof damage, there will be certain type of injuries that are synonymous with those types. So the Ministry of Health is ensuring that if there's a mass casualty situation, that they are able to deal with it. So the planning takes into consideration all of those things. So the mass casualty plan is triggered when it happens. The hospitals know exactly what is it that they're supposed to do. We work with them to ensure that they are ready, and medical procedures and medical services will be available. So that's why we're ensuring that the hospitals have emergency power generation, they have water supply, so that they're able to function and to undertake any type of intervention that is medical intervention that is needed post the event to give the citizens the best chance of surviving a mass casualty incident.
The work of NEMO is at the center of disaster preparedness and recovery. Based on this work, a post-disaster scenario following a major storm is heavily dependent on the success of intersectoral coordination of government services and regional and international support reaching the island quickly to deal with any social, economic, health, and humanitarian crisis. This is to be further supported by a National Disaster Management Fund planned for establishment in 2020. If global and economic conditions affect these strategies negatively, then any time beyond the next 10 years will be spent by the government grappling with severe economic and humanitarian recovery from increased storm intensity and other consequences of climate change.